If you're reading this, it's already too late. I know how that sounds melodramatic, maybe even a little desperate. But trust me, there are things you can't unhear, truths you can't unknow. Some loves are so toxic, they leave scars you can't see, but you'll feel them forever. I used to think love was the answer to everything, that it could heal, redeem, save. But I've learned sometimes love is the question, and the answer is horror. You think you know what love is? Wait until you hear what happened to them. I'm not talking about heartbreaks or messy breakups. I'm talking about the kind of love that seeps into your bones, that changes you, that makes you question if you ever really knew the person lying next to you or yourself. The kind of love that starts with a smile and ends with a scream. Maybe you're here because you're curious. Maybe you're here because you're lonely. Or maybe, just maybe, you're here because you felt it too, that creeping suspicion that something isn't right, that the person you love might not be who you think they are. Or worse, that you might not be who you think you are, either. I've collected these stories not to scare you, though they will. I'm sharing them because someone has to. Because if even one person listens, maybe they'll recognize the signs before it's too late. Maybe they'll escape. Or maybe they'll realize, like I did, that some stories never really end. They just wait for the next person to stumble in. So, are you ready? Let me tell you about 10 people who thought they found the one until they realized they were trapped in a nightmare. It started with a note, folded neatly, slipped under my door, written in careful, looping script. You have the kind of smile that makes the world brighter. I laughed when I read it, thinking it was a prank or maybe a secret admirer with a flair for the dramatic. I was new to the building, still learning the names and faces of my neighbors, and the idea that someone had noticed me felt flattering, harmless, even. The next day, there was a small bouquet of wildflowers waiting on my doormat. No card, just the same handwriting on a scrap of paper, for the girl who brings spring wherever she goes. I remember blushing, glancing up and down the hallway, half expecting someone to jump out and confess. But the corridor was empty, silent except for the hum of the elevator. I told myself it was sweet. Maybe a little old-fashioned, but sweet. I even joked about it to my friends, sending them pictures of the notes and flowers. Looks like I've got a secret admirer, I texted, adding a winking emoji. They teased me, told me to enjoy the attention. And for a while I did. But the gifts kept coming. A box of chocolates, a book I'd mentioned wanting to read, a scarf in my favorite color. Each one accompanied by a note. Each note a little more personal, a little more intimate. I love the way you hum when you cook. You look beautiful in blue. You have the most enchanting laugh. That's when the unease began to creep in. How did they know what I wore? Or that I hummed while making dinner? I started to wonder if I was being watched. One night, I caught a glimpse of movement through the peephole, a shadow lingering just outside my door. My heart hammered in my chest as I pressed my eye to the glass, but whoever it was had already vanished. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just my imagination running wild. But the next morning, there was another note. You looked so peaceful last night. I hope you slept well. At first, I thought the notes were cute, until I realized he was watching me sleep. I started double-checking my locks, pulling the curtains tight, jumping at every creak and groan of the old building. I stopped answering the door, stopped smiling at my neighbors in the hallway. I even considered moving, but the lease was ironclad, and besides, why should I be the one to leave then? One evening, I found a tiny camera hidden behind a vent in my living room. My hands shook as I pried it loose, while rising in my throat. I tore through the apartment, searching for more, and found 2 others, one in the kitchen, one in my bedroom. That night, I slept with the lights on, clutching a kitchen knife, every shadow on the wall a threat. I went to the police, of course. They took my statement, promised to investigate, but I could see it in their eyes. They thought I was overreacting. Probably just a prank, one of them said, trying to reassure me. But I knew better. I could feel his eyes on me, even when I was alone. The note stopped after that, but the feeling never did. I moved out as soon as my lease ended, left the city behind, tried to start over. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake up certain that someone is watching me. That somewhere, he's still out there, waiting for another chance. But obsession isn't the only poison love can bring. When I first met Daniel, He was charming in that slightly awkward, endearing way. He made me laugh, listen when I talked, and always seemed a little surprised that I wanted to spend time with him. There was only one thing that ever made him uneasy: talking about his ex, Lila. He never said much, just that she was intense, and that their breakup had been messy. She said she'd never let me go, he told me once, with a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I thought he was being dramatic. Everyone has baggage, right? The first time something strange happened, I brushed it off. We were watching a movie at his place when the lights flickered, then went out completely. Daniel froze, his face pale in the glow of the TV. "It's just the wiring," I said, trying to lighten the mood. But he didn't laugh. Instead, he whispered, "She's here." I thought he was joking, but the way he stared into the darkness made my skin crawl. After that, little things started happening. I'd find my things moved around his apartment, my keys in the freezer, my phone in the bathroom sink. Once, I came back from the kitchen to find the word "mine" traced in the condensation on the bathroom mirror. Daniel insisted he hadn't done it. "She doesn't like when I'm happy," he said, voice trembling. I wanted to believe he was just struggling to move on, that maybe he was playing some elaborate prank. But the fear in his eyes was real. One night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I heard my name, soft and urgent, coming from the corner of the room. I sat up, heart pounding, and saw a shadow flicker across the wall, tall, thin, unmistakably feminine. Daniel was already awake, staring at the same spot, his hands clenched in the sheets. "Don't answer her," he whispered. "She gets stronger if you talk to her." I tried to laugh it off, but the air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. The next morning, I found scratches on my arms, thin and red, as if someone had dragged their nails down my skin while I slept. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. "She's jealous," he said. "She always was." I started noticing things Daniel did without thinking. He never left mirrors uncovered at night. He always kept a silver ring on his finger, twisting it nervously whenever the temperature dropped. He never said Lila's name after dark. I asked him why, but he just shook his head. "It's better if you don't know," he said. "She likes secrets." The haunting escalated. Lights would shatter when we kissed. My reflection would lag behind in the mirror, smiling when I wasn't. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of a woman's face in the window, watching us with eyes full of hate. I tried to leave, but every time I packed my things, something would go wrong. My car wouldn't start, my phone would die, the door would jam shut. The last night I spent with Daniel, I woke up to find him standing at the foot of the bed, eyes wide and unblinking. "She says you have to go," he whispered, voice not quite his own. "She says you're taking too much." I ran barefoot and shaking and never looked back. He said his ex would never let him go. I thought he was being dramatic, until the lights started flickering. Some loves refuse to die, but others are dead from the start. We thought it was just a game. We were wrong. I was 16, and so was Jamie. We were inseparable best friends, partners in crime, and, as we like to say, soulmates. The kind of love that feels infinite when you're young, like nothing could ever come between you. We spent our summers in the woods behind my house, inventing secret languages, building forts, and daring each other to do stupid things. That's where the idea for the pact came from. It was Jamie's suggestion, late one August evening as the sun bled through the trees. "Let's promise to be together forever," she said, her eyes shining with mischief, and something else, something I couldn't name. She pulled out a pocket knife, the blade small but sharp. "Blood sisters," she whispered, slicing a shallow line across her palm. I hesitated, but she grinned, daring me. I pressed the blade to my own skin, wincing as it bit. We pressed our hands together, blood mingling, and repeated the words, "Forever, no matter what." We laughed about it afterward, feeling brave and a little foolish. We never told anyone. It was our secret, sealed in blood and summer heat. But forever is a long time. We drifted apart after high school. Jamie stayed in town, working odd jobs, while I left for college, eager to escape the smallness of our world. We texted less and less, our calls growing awkward, filled with silences. I started dating someone new, Someone who didn't know about the woods or the pact or the way Jamie used to look at me. Then, one night, I woke to find my phone buzzing with messages from an unknown number. "You promised," the first one read. "You said forever." My heart pounded as I scrolled through dozens of texts, each more desperate than the last. "You can't leave me. You're mine." I blocked the number, telling myself it was just a prank, maybe Jamie being dramatic, but the messages kept coming from different numbers, different accounts. Sometimes they'd appear on my laptop, my tablet, even scrawled in red marker on my dorm room door. Forever, no matter what. I started seeing Jamie's face in crowds, in reflections, always watching, always waiting. I tried to reach out, to apologize, to explain that people grow up and grow apart. But Jamie wouldn't answer my calls. Instead, the dreams began vivid, suffocating nightmares where I was back in the woods, the air thick with the smell of blood and earth. Jamie would be there, her eyes black and endless, her voice echoing in my head. "You promised." One night, I woke to find my hand bleeding, a fresh cut across my palm. I hadn't done it. I knew I hadn't. But the blood was real, sticky and warm, and the words, "in no matter what," were scratched into the wood of my nightstand. I tried to break the pact. I burned the old fort, buried the knife, even tried to forget. But something dark had taken root in that promise, something that wouldn't let go. I started losing time, waking up in strange places, my hands dirty, my clothes torn. I saw Jamie everywhere, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying, always waiting. We thought it was just a game. We were wrong. Not all promises are meant to be kept. He said he loved me for who I was. But what if I wasn't the only me? It started with little things. My boyfriend, Mark, would call me by a nickname I'd never heard before, Red, even though my hair was brown. He'd mention memories I didn't share, like the time we went to the lake in winter or the night we watched a meteor shower from his roof. I'd laugh it off, thinking he was mixing me up with someone else, or maybe just misremembering. But the way he looked at me, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with a strange, searching hunger, made me uneasy. One night, I caught him staring at me across the dinner table, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. "What?" I asked, forcing a smile. He shook his head, eyes wide. "Nothing. You look different tonight." I tried to laugh, but the sound died in my throat. The next day, I saw them. Mark, walking down the street, hand in hand with a woman who looked exactly like me. Same hair, same walk, even the same nervous habit of tucking a strand behind her ear. I froze, heart pounding, as they passed by a shop window. Their reflections moved in perfect sync, like a pair of dancers. I wanted to call out, to confront them, but my voice caught in my chest. Instead, I followed at a distance, watching as they laughed and whispered, oblivious to the world. That night, I confronted Mark. "Who was she?" I demanded. He looked at me, genuinely confused. "Who?" I described the woman, my double, the way she moved, the way she smiled. He shook his head, insisting he'd been at work all day. "You're imagining things," he said, but his eyes darted away from mine. After that, things got worse. I started seeing her everywhere, at the grocery store, in the reflection of a passing car, even in my own apartment building. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of her face in the mirror, just behind my own, her eyes cold and empty. My friend stopped answering my calls, and when I finally cornered one, she looked at me with pity. "You already asked me this," she whispered. "Why are you pretending?" I began to question everything. My memories felt slippery, unreliable. I'd find clothes in my closet that weren't mine, notes in my handwriting that I didn't remember writing. Mark grew distant, his affection turning to suspicion. "You're not yourself lately," he said, voice trembling. "Sometimes I wonder if you ever were." One night, I woke to find her standing at the foot of my bed. She smiled, a perfect imitation of my own smile, and whispered, "He loves me now." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. She reached for me, her fingers cold as ice, and suddenly I was falling, tumbling through. Memories that weren't mine: her first kiss, her favorite song, the way Mark looked at her, not me. When I woke, Mark was gone. So was she. I was alone, surrounded by photographs of a life I didn't recognize. My face, her face, our face, smiling from every frame. I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe I never did. He said he loved me for who I was. But what if I wasn't the only me sometimes? Love means losing yourself, literally. Be careful what you wish for, especially when it comes to love. I was never the guy women noticed. I was the friend, the confidant, the one who listened to their heartbreaks and offered advice, always hoping stupidly that one day they'd see me. But with Mia, it was different. She was sunlight in a world of gray, and I was hopelessly, pathetically in love with her. She barely knew I existed, except as the guy who brought her coffee at work and laughed at her jokes. I tried everything: flowers, compliments, even learning her favorite songs. Nothing worked. She dated other guys, always the same type. Confident, charming, a little dangerous. I watched from the sidelines, swallowing my jealousy, telling myself I'd get over her. But I didn't. Then, one night, I stumbled across a strange little shop tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. The sign read "Curiosities and Remedies." I went in, half out of boredom, half out of desperation. The woman behind the counter looked at me like she already knew why I was there. "You want her to love you," she said, her voice low and knowing. I didn't deny it. She handed me a tiny vial filled with a shimmering, rose-colored liquid. 3 drops in her drink, she whispered. But remember, love given is not the same as love taken. I should have walked away. I should have known better. But I didn't. The next day, I invited Mia out for coffee. My hands shook as I poured the drops into her cup, guilt gnawing at my insides. She smiled at me, the same way she always did, and I almost confessed. But I didn't. At first, nothing seemed different. She laughed at my jokes, touched my arm, looked at me a little longer than usual. I told myself it was working, that maybe she'd finally noticed me. But then things changed. She started texting me constantly, hundreds of messages a day, each one more frantic than the last. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, waiting outside my door for hours. She knew things about me. I'd never told her: my favorite childhood book, the name of my first pet, the way I liked my coffee. It was flattering at first. Then it was terrifying. She became possessive, jealous of anyone who talked to me. She'd cry if I didn't answer her calls, scream if I tried to leave the room. I found her in my apartment one night, sitting in the dark, her eyes wild. "You're mine," she whispered, over and over, rocking back and forth. "You're mine, you're mine, you're mine." I tried to break it off, to explain that things were moving too fast, but she wouldn't listen. She followed me everywhere: work, home, even to the grocery store. My friends stopped calling. My boss pulled me aside, concerned about the woman waiting outside the office every night. I went back to the shop, desperate for a cure, but it was gone, vanished, as if it had never existed. I tried everything: blocking her number, changing my locks, even moving to a new apartment. But she always found me. Always. Now, I sleep with the lights on, my phone turned off, the doors locked and barricaded. But sometimes, late at night, I hear her voice outside my window, whispering my name. I got what I wished for. I just didn't realize the price. Be careful what you wish for, especially when it comes to love. But what if the one you love is hiding something even darker? He said I was special, but so did all the others. When I first moved in with Alex, everything felt like a dream. His house was old but charming, filled with sunlight and the scent of fresh coffee. He'd make breakfast every morning, leave little notes on the fridge, and tell me how lucky he was to have found me. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. After years of failed relationships and heartbreak, I thought I'd finally found someone who saw me, really saw me. We settled into a routine. Sunday mornings spent reading in bed, evenings curled up on the couch, sharing secrets in the dark. I started to notice little things: locked drawers, a door in the hallway that never seemed to open, a key Alex always kept on a chain around his neck. I asked about it once, teasing, "What are you hiding in there? A secret treasure?" He just smiled and kissed my forehead. Nothing important, just old junk. But curiosity is a stubborn thing. One afternoon, while Alex was out running errands, I found the key on the nightstand. I told myself I was just being silly, that I'd open the door, find a closet full of winter coats, and laugh at my own paranoia. But when I turned the key and pushed the door open, I found something else entirely. The room was small and windowless, lit by a single bare bulb. Shelves lined the walls, each one crowded with objects, photographs, jewelry, faded letters, locks of hair tied with ribbon. At first, I thought it was some kind of shrine. Then I looked closer. Every item was labeled with a name and a date. Anna, 2012. Beth, 2014. Claire, 2016. There were dozens of them, each one carefully cataloged, each one belonging to a woman. My stomach twisted as I scanned the shelves, searching for my own name. I found it on a small, empty box, dated this year. My hands shook as I opened it, half expecting to find a piece of myself inside. It was empty. For now. I stumbled back, heart pounding, as memories flashed through my mind. Alex's stories about his crazy exes, the way he always seemed to know what I was thinking, the way he'd get angry if I mentioned leaving. I realized I wasn't the first, and I might not be the last. I tried to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. I fumbled with the key, but it wouldn't turn. Panic clawed at my throat as I pounded on the door, screaming for help. I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate. Alex's voice, calm and steady, drifted through the wood. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said. "But I guess it's time you knew how special you really are." He opened the door, his eyes cold and empty. "Don't worry," he whispered, reaching for me. "You'll always have a place here, just like the others." I don't remember how I got out. Maybe I ran. Maybe he let me go. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really left that room, or if I'm still there, just another name on a shelf, waiting for someone else to find me. He said I was special, but so did all the others. Some secrets are better left locked away. They promised to fix our love. Instead, they broke us. When you're desperate, you'll try anything. That's what I told myself the night I signed us up for the circle of devotion. My partner, Sam, and I had been fighting for months. Petty arguments, cold silences, the kind of distance that grows like mold in the corners of a relationship. I found the group online, buried in a forum for couples on the brink. Their website was slick, full of glowing testimonials and photos of smiling pairs, arms entwined, eyes shining with hope. "We saved our marriage," one review read. "We found each other again." I wanted that. I wanted us back. The first meeting was in a cozy, candlelit room above a bookstore. There were 6 other couples, all of them nervous, clutching hands or sitting stiffly apart. The leader, a woman named Mara, welcomed us with a warm smile and a voice that seemed to wrap around you like a blanket. "Here, we heal together," she said. "Here, we become one." At first, it felt like any other support group. We shared stories, confessed our fears, listened to Mara's gentle advice. She spoke about radical honesty, about tearing down walls and exposing every secret, every flaw. "Love is surrender," she said, her eyes never leaving mine. "To truly love, you must give everything." The exercises started simple: eye contact, trust falls, writing letters to each other. But soon, they grew stranger. We were told to confess our worst thoughts, our darkest desires, in front of the group. We had to wear matching bracelets, symbols of our bond. Mara insisted we spend every moment together, no phones, no outside contact. "The world will try to pull you apart," she warned. "But here, you are safe." Sam and I clung to each other, at first out of fear, then out of habit. The group became our whole world. We stopped seeing friends, stopped calling family. Mara's voice echoed in our heads, her rules shaping our days. If we argued, we were punished, forced to sit in silence for hours, staring into each other's eyes until we broke down, sobbing apologies. One night, Mara gathered us in a circle and handed out knives. "To prove your devotion," she said, "you must bleed for each other." I watched as couples pressed blades to their palms, mingling blood on white cloth. Sam's hand shook as they cut, tears streaming down their face. I wanted to run, to scream, but Mara's eyes held me in place. Things got worse. Couples who resisted disappeared, their names erased from the group chat, their faces never mentioned again. Mara said they weren't ready for true love. I started to see the truth: this wasn't healing. It was control. It was worship, not of love, but of Mara herself. The night we tried to leave, the doors were locked. Mara stood in front of them, smiling. "You can't leave, love," she whispered. "Not until it's finished with you." We fought our way out, bruised and bleeding, the sound of her laughter following us down the stairs. We never spoke about it again. Sam and I drifted apart, the bond between us poisoned by secrets and fear. Sometimes, I still wake up with Mara's voice in my ear, promising that love is surrender, that I'll never be free. They promised to fix our love. Instead, they broke us. But sometimes, the real monster is the one you trust the most. She said I made her feel alive. I didn't realize she meant it. When I met Elise, it felt like fate. She was magnetic, funny, sharp, the kind of beautiful that makes you forget your own name. We met at a party, and by the end of the night, I was hooked. She moved fast, but I didn't mind. It felt good to be wanted, to have someone look at me like I was the only person in the room. The first few weeks were a blur of late-night talks, tangled sheets, and whispered promises. Elise wanted to be close, always touching, always needing me near. She'd trace her fingers along my skin, her touch electric, her eyes hungry. "You make me feel so alive," she'd say, pressing her lips to my neck. I thought it was just passion, the rush of something new. But then I started feeling off. At first, it was little things, headaches, fatigue, a heaviness in my limbs. I blamed work, stress, maybe a cold. But it got worse. I'd wake up exhausted, no matter how much I slept. My skin grew pale, my eyes sunken. Friends started to notice. "You look like hell," they'd say, half joking. I laughed it off, but inside I was scared. Elise was always there, hovering, fussing over me. She'd cook for me, tuck me into bed, stroke my hair until I drifted off. But I noticed she never seemed tired. If anything, she looked better, glowing, vibrant, more alive than ever. I told myself I was being paranoid. Love is supposed to make you feel vulnerable, right? One night, I woke to find her watching me sleep. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, her hand resting lightly on my chest. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My body felt heavy, pinned to the mattress. Elise leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. "You're so good to me," she whispered. "You give me everything I need." After that, things spiraled. I started losing time, hours, sometimes whole days, slipping away. I'd find strange marks on my skin, bruises in the shape of fingers, tiny punctures along my arms and neck. Elise brushed off my questions, her smile never reaching her eyes. "You worry too much," she'd say, pulling me close. "Just rest. Let me take care of you." I tried to pull away, to spend a night alone, but she'd show up at my door, frantic, desperate. "I need you," she'd plead, tears streaming down her face. "Don't leave me. I can't be without you." Guilt kept me there, even as my body wasted away. The truth hit me one night when I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I barely recognized myself, gaunt, hollow, a shadow of the man I'd been. Elise appeared behind me, her face radiant, her eyes shining with something hungry and ancient. "You're perfect," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "You make me feel alive." That's when I saw it. Her reflection didn't quite match mine. Her eyes were too dark, her smile too wide. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and she just laughed, low and sweet. "Don't fight it," she said. "You're mine." I left that night, running until my legs gave out. I never saw her again, but sometimes, when I'm alone, I feel her eyes on me, hungry and waiting. She said I made her feel alive. I didn't realize she meant it. And sometimes, love is just a mask for something much worse. He said he'd love me forever. I just didn't know what he meant by forever. Valentine's Day used to be my favorite holiday. I loved the cheesy cards, the heart-shaped candies, the excuse to wear red and pink without irony. But that changed the year I turned 22, the year the masked man first appeared at my door. It was late, almost midnight, when I heard the knock. I opened the door to find a man standing in the hallway, tall and thin, wearing a crisp black suit and a porcelain mask painted with a red, smiling mouth. He held out a single rose, its petals so dark they looked almost black. "For you, my Valentine," he said, his voice muffled and strange. I laughed, thinking it was a prank, maybe a friend from work. But when I reached for the rose, he caught my hand and pressed his lips to my knuckles. His skin was ice cold. I shut the door, heart pounding, and tried to shake it off. The next morning, I found a box on my doorstep. Inside was a necklace, delicate and old-fashioned, with a note to remember me by. There was no signature. The next year, he came again. This time, he brought chocolates handmade, bitter, filled with something metallic. I threw them away, but the note stayed with me. Love is sacrifice. I started to dread February, counting down the days with a growing sense of unease. My friends thought I was being dramatic. It's just a secret admirer, they teased. Enjoy the attention. But the gifts grew stranger. One year, it was a lock of hair tied with a red ribbon. Another, a heart small, animal, but unmistakably real wrapped in velvet. The notes became more insistent. You are mine. Forever means forever. No one else will ever love you like I do. I tried to move, to change my number, to disappear. But every Valentine's Day, no matter where I was, he found me. The mask never changed, always smiling, always watching. I went to the police, but they couldn't help. No crime has been committed, they said, shrugging. Maybe it's just a joke. Last year, I met someone, Ben. He was kind, funny, normal. For the first time in years, I let myself hope. We spent Valentine's Day together, laughing at bad movies, eating takeout on the couch. I almost forgot to be afraid. Until midnight, when the knock came. Ben answered the door. I heard voices, then a crash. I ran to the hallway and found Ben on the floor, blood pooling beneath his head. The masked man stood over him, rose in hand, mask splattered red. You belong to me, he whispered, voice trembling with rage and something like grief. No one else. I screamed, but he was gone before the neighbors arrived. Ben survived, but he left soon after, unable to look at me without flinching. Now, every Valentine's Day, I wait. I keep the doors locked, the lights on, my phone in hand, but I know it won't matter. He'll come, as he always does, with his gifts and his mask and his promise. He said he'd love me forever. I just didn't know what he meant by forever. But the scariest love stories are the ones that never end. If you're hearing this, maybe you're stuck here with me. I used to think every relationship was a chance to start over. A clean slate, a new beginning. That's what I told myself the first time I met her, Maya. She was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, funny, a little mysterious. We met at a party, sparks flying, and by the end of the night, I was sure I'd found something real. The first few weeks were perfect. We talked for hours, shared secrets, made plans for the future. I let myself believe I was finally free from my past mistakes. But then things started to repeat. The same arguments, the same apologies, the same uneasy feeling in my gut. I'd wake up with déjà vu so strong it made me dizzy. Maya would say something, and I'd know exactly how I was supposed to respond even before the words left her mouth. I started to notice patterns. The way she'd always cry on Thursdays, the way I'd always forget our anniversary, the way we'd always end up screaming at each other in the kitchen, plates shattering on the floor. At first, I thought it was just routine, the way couples fall into habits. But then I noticed the dates on my phone never changed. February 14th, over and over. I'd go to sleep, exhausted and angry, and wake up to the same morning sunlight, the same text from Maya, "Good morning, love." I tried to break the cycle, leave the apartment, turn off my phone, even ignore her completely. But no matter what I did, the day would reset. The same fights, the same tears, the same ending. Me alone, Maya gone, the taste of blood in my mouth and the echo of her voice in my ears. I started to lose track of how many times I'd lived through it. 100? 1,000? Each loop chipped away at me, made me less myself and more a puppet, dancing to the same twisted tune. I tried to warn Maya, to tell her what was happening, but she'd just smile, her eyes empty. "You can't leave," she'd whisper. "You promised." Sometimes, I'd catch glimpses of myself in the mirror, older, thinner, eyes hollowed out by fear and exhaustion. Sometimes, I'd see someone else entirely, a stranger wearing my face, mouthing the same desperate words, "Let me out." I started to wonder if I was being punished. Maybe this was what I deserved for every lie, every broken promise, every time I'd hurt someone who loved me. Maybe this was hell, and Maya was my jailer. Or maybe she was trapped too, just as lost and desperate as I was. The scariest part? I'm not sure I'm the only one here. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear other voices soft, pleading, echoing through the walls. Maybe they're other people, stuck in their own loops, reliving their own nightmares. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you're listening to this, hoping for a way out. If you're hearing this, maybe you're stuck here with me. Maybe we're all trapped, doomed to repeat the same mistakes, the same heartbreak, forever. And now, you know why I had to share these stories. Be careful who you love. Some stories never end. Maybe you're listening in the safety of your room, lights on, doors locked, convinced that these are just stories, someone else's nightmares, not yours. But love has a way of finding cracks in the walls, slipping through the smallest gaps, whispering promises that turn to threats when you least expect it. You think you're safe because you're on the outside, but every story I've told started with someone who thought the same. Maybe you recognized a piece of yourself in one of these tales. Maybe you felt that chill when someone's gaze lingered too long, or heard your name whispered in the dark when you were sure you were alone. Maybe you've made a promise you wish you could take back, or loved someone who left a mark you can't explain. If so, you're not alone. There are more stories out there, some still unfolding, some buried deep, waiting for the right moment to surface. Have you ever loved someone you shouldn't have? Tell me your story if you dare. Leave a comment, share your theory, or confess what keeps you up at night. Maybe your story will be the next warning, the next secret whispered in the dark. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll realize you're not as alone as you think. Remember, the scariest love stories aren't the ones that end, they're the ones that linger, haunting you long after the last word is spoken. So check your locks, trust your instincts, and never ignore that uneasy feeling in your gut. Until next time, if there is a next time.